Everyone, welcome to another podcast. Ben Lister here. Just a quick one. My BL and Friends podcast video. This is my BL and Friends podcast video with Simon Green. Episode 12 today. Here we go. Hello everyone. Welcome to another podcast. It's Ben Lister here. How are we doing today? Welcome to episode 12 of the BL and Friends podcast. Right, let's crack on. As you know, each week I have a guest to talk about their career. Each week I have my friends as guests to talk about their career or hobbies or jobs. So let's crack on with this week's guest from all different radio stations. It's the one, the only, Simon Green. Hi Simon, welcome along.
Hello Ben, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to speak to you.
How are you this fine Thursday evening?
Fabulous today. I've had a wonderful day. My wife is out at the gym, so it's just me and thee. We've had beautiful sunshine here in Bristol, which is where I live now, and it's been a really nice day. And I'm getting ready for we're having a chippy tea tonight. Don't tell anybody because it's naughty. So it's a perfect end to a perfect day. How about yourself?
I'm fine. I've just been podcasting today and been sorting a few things out. So
Good.
And I've just been digesting a few bits of news today.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. I've not really seen much of the news today. I've seen a little bit of the football as we speak. Rennes, the French team, are beating Tottenham Hotspur, and I used to, when I was a student, I had a pen pal in Rennes, and so I know Rennes very well. So I'm delighted to see them beating Spurs. Are you like me? Do you like football, Ben?
I'm a Man United fan.
Good man, that's the way to be. But I kind of follow a team in each league. But Man United are my main team because that's where I'm from, and that's who I've always supported as a young boy.
I don't support Man City like friends of mine.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you call them friends. I've got all my family support Man City, which is why I now live in Bristol and they stayed in Manchester.
Brilliant. You'll have to go back there one day.
I will one day. I may do one day. We're just having too much fun here in Bristol.
What are you doing with yourself now then?
Well, I'm for a job. I work for a big insurance company. Because I did come down here to work for one of the local radio stations, but as with most local radio stations, as for most radio stations that I've worked at, they made me redundant. But yeah, they're not there anymore. Doesn't exist anymore. The station that I worked at, and so normally I'd go traipsing around the country to find another radio job, but I fell in love with my now wife, and I decided to stay in Bristol and make my life here. And so yeah, I'm working for one of the biggest insurers in the country. And in my spare time, I make podcasts and I broadcast on the community radio station Bradley Stoke Radio from time to time. And yeah, we're just having a really good time.
Sam FM it was.
It was Sam FM. It was Jack FM when I started. Then it became Sam FM. And it's now become Hits Radio.
Who's presenting the drive show on that?
It's a young lady called Maxine and a gentleman called Jason Webster. And they're very, very good. They're really, really good. They used to be on Fire in Bournemouth, and now they're across the west on Hits Radio. They're well worth listening to. They're very, very good.
Yeah, they are. They used to be on Hits Radio Breakfast down in South, but now that's Flare East because it's all gone networks. And I feel that in the next 10 to 5 years, it'll all be networks and there'll be not really much local content.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of us, when I started in commercial radio 20 years ago, it was always the rumour that that's what was going to happen. And I think it's just been sort of, it all happened. It was all rumours of happening. And then I think when Facebook came onto the scene, their advertising was so so, what radio couldn't do, it really had an effect. And so radio had to really start thinking outside the box. And the only way that they could really kind of make the profits that they needed to was by, forming all together and making these huge networks we have now, like Heart and Hits Radio and Greatest Hits Radio. And it's a real shame because for generations of us who grew up with radio, local radio the way it was, and were influenced by it and became a little bit, just loved it. And for the audiences, it's a bit of a shame. But having said that, the audience figures are quite healthy, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've not all abandoned them. It seems to be what people are listening to. Whether that's just out of habit, I don't know. But I've got to be honest. I've not listened to a radio station other than Radio 4 for a while.
And also, I'm not a big fan because Tony Blackburn said this a couple of weeks ago. Before we go on to question one, I know I'm not going to keep you too long. Tony Blackburn actually said that radio is full of too many TV stars, not enough radio presenters.
Well, that is an interesting view. He's probably got a point, but I think that the time when TV presenters only did TV and radio presenters only did radio are long gone now. I think that broadcasters are broadcasters, and I'll be honest with you, Ben. I've never really been a big fan of Tony Blackburn, and it's and his that is a comment that would come from his generation. But I just think things have changed now. You can't force it back to the way it was. And broadcasters are broadcasters. They're really, we're a really clever and talented bunch in whatever field we should go in. I'm sure that when Tony Blackburn was on TV, lots of TV presenters said there's too many radio presenters on TV. I think it's a broad church and there's enough room for us all.
Yeah, I agree with you. Shall we get on with the 5 questions, if that's okay, about your broadcast career?
Talk about me.
If that's okay, this is what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about me or Tony Blackburn. That'll be saved for his podcast.
I'm very happy to talk about you, Ben. But let's crack on.
Let's go for it. You ready to rumble in the jungle?
I'm ready to rumble into the jungle.
Let's do a Bruno Brooks fast pace. Where did you start your broadcast career? Question 1.
I started as a volunteer at my local hospital radio station, which was Northern Air Radio in North Manchester General, Crumpsall Hospital, which is the place where I was born as well. I started there when I was 14 years old because I was obsessed with radio. And just to shut me up, I think my uncle knew somebody who was involved and said, would you let our Simon come for a couple of nights? And I was there for years until I went away to university. So so I started at hospital radio at Northern Air, and then I did a couple of RSLs, which were restricted service licenses in the early sort of mid 90s, when the radio authority wanted to discover whether there was a market for more radio stations, and they gave out month-long licenses to broadcast on FM to radio stations and hospital radio stations. So I did Oldham FM and I did Radio Bolton. I did a couple of others. Really got the taste for it. And then I went to university. And at university, I helped to form Siren FM, which was the university radio station for Humberside University as it was. It's still going now at the University of Lincoln. But we helped form that, and that was a fantastic project. It was really, really good to actually build a radio station, and that helped me learn about radio in a way that I would not have been able to elsewhere. And I went back to Manchester and worked there for a bit. Worked at a place called Ticketmaster behind the Palace Theatre, selling theatre tickets, and I would do hospital radio while I was doing that as well. And I just started sending tapes to everybody, and eventually I got a phone call from Stuart Baldwin at 96.9 Viking FM in Hull, as we know, Commercial Road, Hull, HU12SG, inviting me to do overnights, just one overnight a week, Sunday night into Monday morning, covering for Wyatt, And so I did that. And then I'd finish on air at 6 o'clock. And then I would spend about half an hour with Hursty and Darren and Pimp Daddy Dog. And then I'd get the first train back to Manchester at 7 o'clock and go straight into work. And eventually, there was an opportunity for me to... I decided that I was just going to move to Hull. I decided that I loved that one shift at Viking Radio so much. I'm just going to bite the bullet and move to Hull and see what else I can do. So I did. And I shared a flat with Mark Summers, who was a Viking FM DJ at the time. And basically what I did then, as soon as they gave me a key to the building, I just made myself available. So when I got myself a job at the Virgin Megastore in Prince's Quay. And when I'd finished work there, I'd go straight into Viking, make people cups of tea, just make a nuisance of myself, really, and get to know everybody. And eventually, they offered me the chance to produce a couple of shows on a Sunday night. Roadblock on the Radio, which was Darren Goldbaum, an R&B show, which was... I didn't really like R&B music, but I learned to love it, and that was a great show. And the second show I produced was Sex and Chocolate on a Sunday night, which was Gail Lofthouse, who's now on Radio Leeds, an absolute genius. She's one of my favourite presenters. She's one of my favourite people in radio. And that show was incredible. The amount of stuff that she crammed into 2 hours was phenomenal. And then I would go on after her and do the overnight show. Then eventually, I was asked to produce Sam Hayward in the afternoon because I'd got on really, really well with Sam. We were drinking buddies, and she's another really talented presenter and hilarious woman. Such a wonderful friend. I would do anything for Sam. She's a wonderful person. I love her to death. And we won she won a Sony Radio Award for Sam Hayward in the afternoon, which I was producing. As a result of that, I went on to produce Foxy and Tom at breakfast. And then after a year or so, Foxy and Tom went to 210 FM in Reading, and I followed them. I produced them at 210. And then we spent a year or so there. And then I left to become a presenter at GWR in Swindon on the breakfast show. And I was like the street boy character. So I'd go out at like 6 o'clock in the morning and go swimming in the Cotswold Water Park, or dress as a cowboy and give McDonald's away in Chippenham and that kind of thing. I'd do stunts during the day, during the morning. Loved it. Fabulous town, Swindon, brilliant place to broadcast to. We ended up climbing Mount Kilimanjaro for charity, and we did a show live from Mount Kilimanjaro. The most incredible experience of my life. Following that, I went back up north and I produced 3 breakfast shows at the same time for Wire FM, Wish FM, and Tower FM. They're not there anymore. And also produced the mid-morning show with Tony Horn, which was networked to the 3. And Tony Horn is a fantastic broadcaster. If you've not heard of him, look him up. He's a really, really interesting character. He did the breakfast show on Metro Radio in Newcastle for years and years and years. And he's an absolute legend up there. And I think it's fair to say that I probably learned more about radio in the first 2 weeks that I worked with Tony than any other time that I worked for GWR. He's an absolute genius. And from there, I was just so tired doing 4 shows a day. I was just looking for something else to do. And I'd become really unhealthy because I was working so much. I'd ballooned out to 26 stone, if you can believe that. And there was a station called Jack FM in Bristol. And Jack FM was, I think all the other radio stations, Viking FM had a real character of its own at the time. All the other stations I worked for were a bit more generic. But Jack FM was really cheeky. You know, outside their studios, they'd fly the Jolly Roger, the pirate flag. And it had a real attitude to it. They had a breakfast show and no other presenters, just they had a voice of the station. And between every other song, this voice would tell a joke or say something sarcastic. And it was all my kind of music like indie music and guitar music. And I really loved it. And I got the chance to produce The Breakfast Show and be a co-presenter on The Breakfast Show. We did that for 2 years, and then it became Sam FM, and my services were no longer required. And that really is my broadcast career.
Wow, what a broadcast career you had. You mentioned Foxy and Tom. Tom now, from what I've heard, is working for Talk Radio.
He is, yeah. He was in charge of Talk Sport 2 for a while, and I believe that there's some exciting news coming from Talk Sport that Tom's heavily involved with. But I think I'll leave him to tell that story.
I was talking to someone who probably works with him, Ian Collins.
Yes, Ian Collins. He's a great presenter, Ian Collins. I used to listen to him overnight on Talk Radio when I was younger. Ian Collins and the Creatures of the Night. That was a superb show.
Do you remember his producer called Alan?
I do, yeah.
He's a good friend of mine, Alan, on the Facebook. He lives not far from you.
Oh, is that right?
He lives in Hampshire, which is just...
Oh.
He lives in Hampshire, not far from Andover.
Yeah, I know Andover. Nice part of the world, that.
Yeah, he lives not far from there.
And how was Ian? What did Ian teach you?
Ian just taught me the ways of the world, and he was talking about Geronimo the alpaca.
Oh, was he?
The one that got put down for TB, but not really tested, and the government just put him down. And one of their presenters, who's a guy called Kevin O'Sullivan, actually went down to the Department of Health and asked why Geronimo got put down. Kevin O'Sullivan took it to his heart, and so did James Whale.
He used to write for the Mirror, didn't he, Kevin O'Sullivan? Very interesting journalist.
Yeah, and his old friend Piers Morgan's has been announced as a new presenter on a new thing that Murdoch's doing, Talk TV.
Has he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see murmurings about that. I thought, what do you think of Piers Morgan?
No comment.
I've blocked him on Twitter because I find him to be just one of the most irritating attention seekers.
He blocked me. He blocked me. He blocked me. Yeah, because I told him to stop printing the COVID figures because it's not fair on people's mental health.
That's understandable, and he blocked you for that, did he?
Yeah, he blocked me for that comment.
I just think he's a pain, and he's not. I'm not entirely sure that he's he's responsible enough not to want to take the limelight at each turn.
We'll get on with this quickly. Are we on to question 2 or 3?
2 we're up to.
2. Who, keep this quick, but keep it relevant and precise. Who were your inspirations in broadcasting when you were starting out?
Well, when I was starting out, when I become obsessed with radio when I was a child, and I used to listen to Piccadilly Radio, which was Manchester's local radio station. I never listened to Radio 1 until I left Manchester. Didn't need to. Piccadilly was way, way better than any other radio station on the dial. The first presenter that I remember was Timmy Mallet, who was incredible. And then they had names like Tim Grundy, Steve Penk, Pete Mitchell. I used to love listening to them as well. But Timmy Mallet used to have a crew with him. Like, he used to have young people come and help him out as helpers on the show. And one of those helpers was a chap called Chris Evans, who you may have heard of. And the other one is the man who is my main inspiration for broadcasting, a gentleman called Paul Carrington. He did a show called The Late Night Funster Show, and it was the most fun. It was like being part of a gang. And I didn't really have a lot of friends at school. I wasn't very popular at school, and so I didn't have a big group of mates. And the Late Night Funster Show made me feel like I was part of a gang, and I absolutely loved it. I later got to work with Paul Carrington at Viking and got to know him quite well. And he is the loveliest man. the loveliest man, most really supportive, very, very funny, great head on his shoulders, and just everything that you would want one of your heroes to be. So my main broadcasting inspiration was Paul Carrington.
Darren Leatham actually said he told the world's worst joke, but you just laughed at it.
Very, very talented man, very, very funny. I would laugh at anything that he said because he was just a genius on the radio, absolute genius.
And Dan Morfitt and Stephanie Hurst nicknamed him in my podcast that I did with them two, Beard Darren Leatham.
That's right, yeah. I never understood why he was called Beard. I mean, I must admit, I still call him Beard, amongst other things.
Yeah, he's a legend, him. Question 3. What is your favourite part about the job?
My favourite thing about being on the radio is being able to share things with people, be it the music that you're passionate about, or anything that you're passionate about, or your stories, or people, listeners sharing their stories with you. It's just, for me, that whole, it's such an intimate media for something that everybody sort of listens to and pays attention to. Being able to change people's lives. We've done a few competitions where we've changed people's lives, and that's a fantastic thing to be able to do, to be able to be a really positive influence on people's lives is a real gift. But for me, the best thing about being on radio is being able to share a joke and share a laugh and share your stories and share enthusiasms for life and for music with other people.
Brilliant. Question 4. We'll go on to question 4. How has COVID affected your life and line of work?
Well, when COVID hit, I was doing a little bit of work for a community radio station called Bradley Stoke Radio in Bristol. And when COVID hit, thankfully, I remained in work. My job was still open, so I wasn't made redundant or furloughed or anything. But we didn't have any work to do. So I was very, very fortunate to have a lot of time to sort of follow my passions. And I ended up embracing doing radio programs at home. And so I would record 2 or 3 shows per day and send it over to the radio station. And it was really satisfying to hear something that I'd written and recorded in the morning, go out in the afternoon. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And now that everything's kind of more back to normal, I haven't got the time to do that anymore. But I did a daily show called the Random Retro Chart Show, where we picked all the charts from this week in all the years gone by, like 60 years gone by. We randomly picked out 20 years. We've got a computer to randomly pick out 20 years, and then randomly pick one number between 1 and 40. And then for those 2 hours, we'd play every song that was in that position in those years. And it threw out some amazing songs. So that was a fabulous thing to do. So the way it's affected my radio work is it's made me embrace recording at home.
Have you ever put Phil Collins' Easy Lover on before?
Oh yeah, hundreds of times.
Did you ever play it at Viking?
I don't think we did play it at Viking because it was a bit old for Viking at the time.
Yeah.
We must have played it on Magic.
Yeah. Did you ever play it? Have you ever played it at your station that you're at now?
I've never played it at Bradley Stoke Radio, but I'm sure that other people have. Why do you ask that? Is that one of your favourites?
Yeah, it's iconic song, one of the best.
Yeah. Fabulous song. Phil Collins, it's Phil Bailey as well, isn't it? From Imagination.
Yeah.
Great song.
I saw Phil Bailey from Earth, Wind and Fire. It was Phil Collins' attempt to get a video with Earth, Wind and Fire because he was a big Earth, Wind and Fire fan. That's
right, yeah. And you know, Phil Collins, sort of when I was doing Roadblock, which is the R&B show that we did with Darren Goldborn at Viking FM, all of the hip hop and rapper artists and rappers from that period loved Phil Collins. he was their absolute icon, and sort of Brandy and Ray J and a few other sort of R&B singers did a tribute album to Phil Collins. So all these really, really cool acts doing all Genesis songs. It was really interesting.
He's not very well at the moment, from what I saw.
He's not. No. He's suffering quite a bit, but he's still getting out on the road, hasn't he? He's not letting it beat him.
He might be wheelchair bound, but you can't take him that easily. He's still standing.
Absolutely.
Hey, yeah. Last question. What advice would you give to young aspiring broadcasters who are starting out?
I've been thinking about this all day, and what is the best advice that I could give a young aspiring broadcaster? I would say the way that I got into it, and probably most of the people that you speak to got into it, those avenues just aren't really there anymore. But really, nowadays, you don't need a radio station to broadcast. What I would say is listen to radio as much as you can. Listen to as much spare time as you've got. You can now listen to any radio station in the world. Just listen to loads and loads of stuff, and then just start doing it. Get yourself Audacity. Get yourself a microphone. Get recording and putting your own shows together, and then get it on Mixcloud. There has never been easier to broadcast yourself. You no longer need a radio station to broadcast. That barrier is no longer there. If you've got an idea for a show, do it again, and do it again, and get it out there. Get all your friends listening, and that's how you build an audience. If what you're doing is good enough, you'll find an audience, and it's never been easier or more democratic to do it. Just get out there and get doing it.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me, Simon.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour speaking to you, Ben, and I enjoy listening to your podcasts. They're always very entertaining and very informative, and long may it continue. Which one have you listened to? Well, I've listened to all of my old friends, so Darren Leatham, Stephanie Hurst I've listened to. I will now go and listen to Ian Collins, because I think Ian Collins is great. But yeah, I think Peter Gould's in there as well, a guy called Jonathan Gould. I will listen to Jonathan. That sounds interesting as well. But yeah, you'll be my gym buddy next week. Yeah, he explained the reason why Galaxy can't exist in this day and age, so you'll have to listen to that. That sounds really interesting. That sounds fascinating. I will do. Yeah. Have you ever met Jonathan Gould? I don't think I have. No. Or heard of him? I've heard of him. I've heard the name. John O'Gould. Yeah. He used to be at Viking back in the day. Did he? I'm surprised I've not met him then. But yeah, no, I don't think I have. I think it was when it was before it became Viking FM. Oh right, all that time ago. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Please give it up for my guest Simon Reed. This will be available on my Wix website and my SoundCloud. But thank you very much for watching and listening. No, sorry, my YouTube. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And that's a wrap. That was my interview with Simon Green. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it filled a gap in your time. And I hope you're happy with it. Yeah, more podcasts coming later on. But for now, I'll see you soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's a wrap. And this is the 90th YouTube video of the year. So yeah, be all out and that's a wrap.